And Praggnanandhaa just taking his time here, getting himself relaxed. And after almost a minute, he plays the move e6. One of the things that Pragg would be trying to do today after, missing a winning position against Abhimanyu Mishra yesterday is to keep his chances alive with the black pieces. Not something easy when you're playing such a solid player as Bluebaum. So bishop b4 check, you can see he's gone for the kind of advanced or accelerated Bogo without really developing the knight on g8. Bishop takes c3, b takes c3, unprovoked. Why did Pragg do that? f5, wow. This is a very interesting way that Pragg is playing here. He's trying to control the light squares by eliminating the knight and pushing the pawn to f5. And Bluebaum goes e4. Very interesting pawn sacrifice here. But actually with a very simple point that if you take the pawn, I'm going queen g4. Also notice that in this position, white has the bishop pair. So it's in his interests to actually open up the position. The queen comes to g4, creating a double attack on g7 and e4 pawn. And Praggnanandhaa now has to decide how to defend this. g7 clearly more important. He goes queen e7. And I like this move because he defends here. He keeps the f6 square free for his knight to come out. Queen takes e4 played. And white would have a very serious advantage here if not for the fact that black is actually developing pretty quickly. Look at this. The bishop comes out. The knight comes to f3. But this move I love because bishop on b7 is going to be super strong here. Knight to f3. So Pragg actually making use of his own strengths here. And well, bishop b7 makes a lot of sense. He puts the bishop on this long diagonal. And bishop comes out to d3. d6 played with the idea of putting the knight on d7. White castles. And now the knight comes to d7. This e6 pawn is potentially a weakness. So rook e1 does seem like a normal move. He goes bishop e3, putting the two bishops on the e file. Kind of blocking the action down here. But maybe Bluebaum is happy with the fact that he has this maneuver knight d2. I wonder what he's aiming. Maybe he's going bishop d3 or e5 by Pragg. And rook comes to e1. So he's actually angling for the f4 break. That's the idea it seems. And Pragg goes king to h8, a useful move to get the king out from this diagonal. And bishop d1 played here by Bluebaum. He's opening up this e file. And maybe preparing f4 move. Rook a e8 played here. And let's see how white continues. Bluebaum goes f4. He pushes his pawn and he asks Praggnanandhaa, what's your plan now? If e takes d4, c takes d4, white has a lot of space. E takes f4 seems like the right way to continue here. And Pragg does it. He plays e takes f4. Bishop takes f4. Oh, he takes with the rook. Yeah, it's important because if bishop takes f4, queen takes e1 would be the issue. So rook takes, queen f7, just moving the queen away from the e file. And the queen could potentially pop out on this diagonal. Rook f1 played. And if we had to take stock of the situation right now, you will realize that white still has the two bishops, but they are not playing an active role. But Bluebaum is trying to get his light squared bishop active in a more creative way, like bishop c2. So bishop goes to f2. And the idea is to put the bishop on h4. Pragg first chops off one of the rooks here. Rook takes e1. And he takes back. Rook takes e1. And now rook takes e1 here as well. Bishop takes back on e1. And knight to f8. I think Pragg really enjoys playing in such endgames where there is a small imbalance to try and grind here. Bishop goes to g3. But here it doesn't feel like he has enough juice to create something. He goes queen to d7. And sometimes just looking at the c4 pawn, thinking about coming to a4 if the bishop isn't here, could be interesting. Queen f5 played. And now c5 could be a very interesting pawn sacrifice. But instead goes d5. And I think this is the move that Pragg would be happy to see, because now the c4 pawn is a bit weak. The knight can actually jump here to c5 at some point. King g8. Yes, calmly bringing the king in. We are on move 27. So good idea now can be, because both players are down to their last few minutes, I was saying like good idea could be not to do something committal, but Pragg does something extremely committal. He puts his knight on e5 and he allows the trade of the bishop for the knight. And perhaps this was a little bit too soon for Pragg to do that. And he goes queen e4. He's offering a trade of queens. Queen takes queen. Knight takes. Now the e5 pawn is hanging, but so is the c3 pawn. So he takes on e5. And now knight takes c3. Yeah, he takes the pawn, attacks the bishop here. Bishop goes to d3. And maybe king f8 to e7 could be an idea. But b5 played here by Pragg. Very interesting move. Whoa, c5. But isn't this hanging here, the d5 pawn? Yeah, he takes it. Knight takes on d5. And now knight to c6 he goes in. He's attacking the a7 pawn. Could potentially make the b5 pawn weak. Pragg goes bishop b7. And his point is, if bishop b5, maybe he wants to go a6. Bluebaum takes on a7, attacking the b5 pawn. Now the best move is knight f4 or knight c3, but a huge blunder by Praggnanandhaa. He plays c6. He thinks everything is fine. He's kind of trapped the knight here. But the unfortunate part is he's missed bishop e4 here by Matthias. Look at Pragg's face. He looks super confident. He feels good right now about his position. But look at Bluebaum. He spots it. He spots that move, bishop e4. And the threat is, of course, to take on d5. Yes, he plays it. Take, and knight b5 is the big threat. And the point, of course, knight goes back, knight b5 is a pin. So knight c3 played, defending here. But now you lose the c6 pawn. So we are at move 38, quickly reaching to move number 40. And in doing so, Pragg has actually landed in a lost position here in the knight endgame. It's insane how the position has absolutely turned around. And I think a bit has to do with the fact that Pragg was wrong in assessing that position. And he's now in trouble. Knight d4. And, knight endgames are kind of tricky, but at the same time quite simple. Tricky because the knight jumps in so many different directions. You have to calculate it all. But simple because a knight endgame often is like a pawn endgame. The side which has an extra pawn more often than not wins. c6 played. And now the king can go back to e7, trying to stop it. Pragg has all the time in the world, 50 minutes, but what to do with all of that time? There's nothing much to be done here. King f2. He brings the king in. The hope is for white to go to d3, attack the knight, and then pick up this pawn on b5. King comes to d6, keeping the c6 pawn under control. So Bluebaum actually decides that I don't want to go and touch this knight. It's anyway kind of locked up here, defending the pawn. I'll try to create something on the king side with my pawns and king. g6 by Pragg. And now h4. So pawn pushes to h4. And now g4, king f4, king g5. h6 played. King comes up to g4. And now the threat is h5, g5, king comes via f5 and g6. So Pragg needs to do something drastic here, which is why he's trying to move his knight. He goes knight d5, and you must take the pawn on b5 now. Knight takes b5. Pragg takes, king takes c6, taking the pawn. And now knight d4. Again a forced move. He finds it. I love how Bluebaum is so focused. King c5, attacking the knight on d4, bringing back to c2, defending the pawn. And well, Pragg now has to decide, keep the king towards the king side or bring it forward. He's coming in. And now a very, very important move here to be found, which is king f3. The reason for that move is like, if imagine you play something like g3, by the way, finds it, king b3, and you need the knight to come to e3. So king b3, now knight e3. That's the reason why you need your king on f3. And Bluebaum, of course, finds it. You can't take, and take here, as the white king will simply run and clear up these pawns. So knight f6 seems like the right move. King f4, king e5. Well, he goes knight g4. Again pursuing the trade, otherwise h6 is hanging. So knight g8. And now king can go in this direction. King e4. King takes a3. King e5. With the idea of coming in. Pragg finally pushes his pawn to h5. King e6. And h takes g4. And he goes king f7. Oof, what a nice way to finish this. If knight h6, I go king g6, knight g8. I push my h pawn. You have to sacrifice your knight. I come back, pick up this pawn, and win the pawn endgame. Such a nice finish, by the way, by Bluebaum, making absolutely no errors. And Pragg resigns here. No errors in conversion. And Pragg, who pretty much would have had a draw from that position because he just pushed a bit too much there, has now lost the game. And I think this loss comes at a very critical moment in the tournament. Pragg is at 3 points out of 5. And well, needs to win his next game to have a chance of finishing in the top 2 and get a spot to the candidates. But